everyone. I'm Jillian Sidoti. This is my partner, Jeffrey Holst. This is the Last Life Ever podcast. Oh, hi. And today, who do we have on the show, Jeff?
We have Simon Ladder on the show. Simon is amazing. I was recently on his podcast, and I liked him so much, I invited him to come on ours. He has a great show called The Conference Room, which I highly recommend people check out, particularly because they interview amazing guests like me. Okay, with that, I think maybe we ought to just try to bring Simon on instead of talk about how awesome I am.
Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to take. Let's live life for the moment before it slips away.
Simon, I have to apologize for that terrible intro. That was my worst ever intro, so sorry about that.
Why are you saying sorry? Let's just move on.
I've got to tell you, it's the first one I've seen, so I thought it was awesome. You know?
Oh, yeah, fair enough. No, so I'm super excited to have you on, though, because I really want to talk about, what you do and how you help people sort of figure out what they should be doing for a career. So that's the main reason we brought you on, and I should have brought that up in the intro. That's why I feel like I didn't do a very good job. But anyway, thanks so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about how your day's going.
My day's going great. It's just after 4:00 in the afternoon here in sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. I went out for a walk a little earlier. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and a boy that grew up in Manchester, where in January you'd be fighting against negative temperatures, to be out in able to walk around without a coat in the middle of January. Even though I've been here for nearly 8 years, that does not get old. So it's been a great day so far.
Yeah, sounds go ahead, Jillian.
So tell us what it takes to really get a job, because I don't want a job. I don't want a job at all. I don't want to work, period. So tell us what it takes to get a job you love.
Okay, so that's a great question, and if I may say, beautifully worded as well, Jillian. So getting a job you love is really about understanding what it is you want to do, all right? And then going out and finding a job that has as much of that in there as possible. Okay, the very basic kind of mathematics behind it is that to have a job that you love is really down to matching together two things. Okay, matching together all of the things that you spend your time doing in your job, and then how much each of those things, how highly you enjoy each of those things. All right. So if, let's say, you do 5 different things over the course of the day, all right? One of them you spend, say, 4 hours doing, one of them you spend 3 hours doing, and then the other 3 you spend maybe 20, 30 minutes each doing. And that makes up your 8-hour day, all right? If the thing you're doing for 4 hours you hate, the thing you do for 3 hours you loathe, and of the 3 things that you do the rest of the day you marginally tolerate, but one of them you really enjoy, clearly you're not going to be enjoying that job. But if it was the flip side, where you loved the thing you did for 4 hours, you adored the thing you did for 3 hours, and you really liked the thing you did for those other 2 things, and the one thing you didn't really enjoy, but it was only for 20 minutes, then that's a job you love. So really what this is about is matching up the things that you spend the most time doing with the things you actually enjoy doing. And if you can find a match of those things, then you have a job you love.
That's
very cool.
So smart. And it makes perfect sense, but I've never really rationalized it that way. I'm trying to think of the jobs that I liked the most in my life, and it's probably when I worked at 7-Eleven.
I knew you were going to say 7-Eleven, and I was like, both Jeff and I are going to be at 7-Eleven. I always say my dream job is at Starbucks as a barista. You just go and you do the job, you make somebody stay with coffee, and then you leave. And Jeff has always said his favorite job ever was when he worked overnight shifts at 7-Eleven.
My favorite, I mean, I'm very lucky. I love the job I have now, but before, probably the best job, the job I enjoyed the most of all was when I was 17. I graduated high school at 16, and then I went to live in Israel for 2 years. And I came back periodically to kind of see my folks back in England. And I'd got a job for like 3 or 4 weeks working in a fish shop. And this is not fish and chips. This is basically, here's a raw salmon. I'm gutting it. I'm steaking it. I'm filleting it. Right. And I did that. And it was awesome. I mean, I came home every night stinking of fish. I know this is a children's show, so I'm just going to try to this next story G-rated. All right. But I used to come home every night. My mum, bless her, hates the smell of fish, right? So I used to come home every night stinking of sweat and sawdust and fish. And my mum, this is what I had to do. I had to ring on the doorbell, right? My mum would get a trash bag, post it through the mail slot, right? And I'd have to strip buck naked in our porchway, right? Ring on the bell again. A hand would emerge round to get the trash bag, take it inside so my mum could do the laundry. I had to run upstairs and take a shower because the idea of me coming into the house stinking of fish was just an anathema to my mum. So there's a 17-year-old boy in the 8, 9 o'clock at night, with only what he was born on. That was me.
That is fantastic. So what's the first? I mean, obviously you want to analyze, but like, let's just say you analyze your situation. You go, I hate everything I do. I don't want to do this job anymore. I want to move on with my life. What is the next step that somebody should take in order to find the job that they love?
Okay. Another great question, Jillian. Okay. So stage number 1 is figure out what's wrong. Okay. And there are some pretty sophisticated tools that we have that can help people with that. But a very simple thing to do is literally just make a list of all the things that you do in your job right now, and then score them in a scale of 1 to 5. How much I'm enjoying them, and maybe and also apportion the amount of time in any given day or any given week, how much time you spend doing them. All right, and then you can start to see whether or not there is a wild mismatch between the time you're spending on doing something and how much you're enjoying it. Okay. Now, once you kind of determined, right, okay, clearly there's something wrong here, then the next stage is to say, okay, well, what do I want to do? Okay, now I've figured out what's broken. How do I come and start to fix it? So the next stage is to say, okay, fine, let me think about, okay, these are the things that are scored highly. So if I'm working on a scale of 1 to 5, these are the 5s that I love, the 4s that I enjoy, 3s, 2s and 1s, I'm going to put those to one side. Fine. Now I'm going to think about all the things that I've done in other jobs. Okay, and I'm going to write those down, the things that I've really enjoyed in other jobs. Then I'm going to think about what are things that I've done in my voluntary work or hanging out with my friends or things I don't necessarily get paid to do, my hobbies, my interests. Okay, what do I enjoy doing? Okay, and write those down as well. Now, the key thing to do, by the way, when you're doing that exercise is do a full and exhaustive brain dump. Make a list of all the things. Okay, then go away, have a cup of coffee, take the dog for a walk, vacuum the spare room, do something completely different, and then come back and do it again. Okay. When you do a complete brain emptying exercise, you never really get the spoon to the corners of the peanut butter jar. There's always bits around the side. So you really want to do it again, and then again, and then again. All right. So you want to go through that exercise at least 3 times. Almost certainly, even on attempt number 3, there'll be new things that you haven't thought about, which, by the way, is always whenever you're making a list of anything, it's always worthwhile doing, just by the way.
Wow.
So, okay. Wait, I got to interrupt for a second. So I've done this mentally while you were talking 3 times. I did it 3 times. And I know what I want to do for a career. I want to drink scotch.
Well,
oh my gosh,
my friend. So actually, you know what? We'll come back to that because I think that's a really good point. We'll come back to that. Okay. So you've gone through your list of all the things you want to do. All right. So now you've got a list of, okay, here are the things that I want to spend my time doing. Okay. Now the trick is, how do I monetize that? How am I going to find someone that's going to pay me to drink scotch? All right. So how do I do that? All right. So the key thing, so there are a couple of very relatively simple things that you can do. All right. One is when you've got a list of all of the things you want to do, pick the top kind of 5 or 6. Okay. And then go on to either LinkedIn Jobs or Indeed, Monster.com, any big job website, and just put these keywords in. All right. So for example, Jeff, you're a writer, you're a broadcaster, you enjoy Scotch. So you may find that there is another podcast, there's a blog, there's somewhere that wants someone that's creative, that has an interest in Scotch, and will pay you to do that. All right. When I teach this, I give the example of, say, 2 years ago. I'm very lucky that for several years I've really enjoyed the job that I did. But let's say I didn't. Okay. So let's say 2 years ago I was doing what we're now discussing, right? So I would think, okay, well, what is it in my job that I enjoy doing? Right. Okay. So I'm a headhunter. So for a living, I enjoy interviewing people. That's part of the job I really do enjoy. Okay. Of all the parts of what I do, I love interviewing candidates. I love talking to people and engaging with them. Okay. Let's say I didn't like the sales part. So let's put that as it happens I do, but let's just say I didn't. Let's put that to the side. Okay. What else do I enjoy doing? Well, I enjoy writing, and I enjoy, let's just say that's it. That's what I enjoy. Right. What about my personal life? Okay. Well, actually, as it happens, I have a hobby of editing videos and doing editing and stuff like that. I like kind of making lip sync videos and stuff like that and editing them. All right. So I enjoy editing, and I quite enjoy writing and stuff like that. So now I'm putting together, okay, well, I enjoy interviewing people. I enjoy writing. I enjoy editing. Maybe there's something I could do with all that. So I would then maybe put that into a Monster or Indeed or something like that. And bingo, what comes out? Why not do a podcast? In a podcast, you interview people, which I happen to be quite good at. I've done that for the last nearly 20 years. I have to do writing. I've got to research into people beforehand to do a good interview. There's editing involved in putting together a podcast. I mean, heck, who am I talking to? Of course, you guys know that. And maybe a little artwork, design, social media stuff, blah blah blah. There, I'll be on podcast. And sure enough, here I am today, podcasting with you guys, and I have my own podcast. So it just goes to show that although I didn't come to it through this route, this route would have taken me to where I am now, insofar as that it's a whole new area for me that I could have found by going through this exercise, because it's marrying together elements of the job that I really enjoy with elements from outside of my professional life.
Okay, so, but is it realistic though, right? Because I like podcasting. I don't know how successful your podcast is, but I don't believe that, like, if I'm a lawyer, which I was and did before I got into podcasting, right, that I can make as much podcasting as I can practicing law right this week.
No. Okay, I'm not suggesting that there's going to be an automatic that anybody that has any interest in anything can monetize a podcast. I'm just using this as an example of go onto Monster and you may find, hey, somebody that has a podcast might want you to be the guy that hosts their podcast, that produces their podcast, that edits their podcast, whatever it is.
We might get a job working for someone else's podcast, and then
exactly.
Yeah.
So my point is that that once you've identified the elements of your job that you do now that you enjoy, elements of previous jobs that you've done that you enjoy, elements in your private life, in your hobbies, your interests, your voluntary work, whatever it is that you enjoy, and you put those together, then you'll be amazed at what you may find is applicable to a job that's out there. And the one other thing as well, by the way, and it's important to dispel this myth, is that people say to me all the time, well, it's all well and good, Simon, but right now nobody's hiring. We're in a pandemic, nobody's hiring. We're in a recession, nobody's hiring. It's Monday, nobody's hiring. It's January, nobody's hiring. All right? The amount of times I hear that, and I have to tell you, that is always utter nonsense. And I'll tell you why. Because everybody is hiring. Everybody is always hiring. Okay? And what do I mean by that? So, everybody will always go to the dentist when they have toothache. All right. Everybody is hiring for the person that can solve their problem. All right. So the next step, once we've got this list of, okay, we've figured out what the elements that we want to have in our job, and we've maybe found by going onto Indeed or Monster or Google or whatever, the kind of jobs that may have these elements required, you then have to go out and find the companies that need somebody that does that. Okay. Find the secret sauce, the golden ticket is to go and find a company that needs the skills that you offer, that has a problem that you are uniquely positioned to solve. Okay. And even though that sounds like, oh, that's ridiculously simple, it is ridiculously simple, but it's true and it works. It really is.
So do you think they have jobs for like tiki bartender on monster.com? You know, like the job that Tom Cruise had in Cocktail. That's the job I want. So
hey, Jillian,
let me give you one other very quick one. Okay. We are in a pandemic. So in some areas like tourism, traveling might be a bit more tricky, but there's somebody that I know who was miserable as a teacher. Okay. He loved teaching, but hated where he was teaching, and basically decided, you know what, I'm going to go and live in wherever, the other side of the world, and teach English to foreign students, and had the most fantastic life doing it. Okay. There was another guy that I know who he was a computer sciences teacher, and in his school he was the kind of IT guy. Okay. And transitioned into customer services for a software company, because so after sales service, which was basically utilizing his strength in teaching and the fact that he knew about computers, and he loved it. So you'll be amazed the element that people have more transitional skills than, for the most part, than they are aware of. You know, a job that you're doing now will have elements that you can transfer into doing another job for somebody else. If you're miserable doing this, it's either because of the environment, you know, your boss is an idiot, your colleagues are vile, or whatever it is, right? Or because of the job itself. If it's because of the environment, go and do that. If you love being an attorney, but the firm you're working for are full of idiots, go and be an attorney for another firm, okay? But if you hate being an attorney, there will be elements in what you do as an attorney, and maybe what you did before, what you do in your private life, etc., that you'll be able to transition into another job that you'll enjoy.
This is 100% true, of course. Jillian just got out of law recently, but for me, I've been out of law for like a decade. Literally yesterday was my 10-year anniversary of taking a non-law related job that I've now been out of for 3 or 4 years. But for sure, 100%, my skills as a lawyer helped me in my new careers, plural, that I've had since I got out of law. 100% sure of that. But is that true when I worked at 7-Eleven? That something I learned there was useful for me in my next career?
Customer service, customer facing, you know, knowing where all the decent drinks were kept.
Yeah, I mean, all I really remember why I think I like the 7-Eleven job is I used to like stand outside with a broom handle and lean on it and smoke cigarettes.
Which, let's be honest, who amongst us does not have that as a vital life skill?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't smoke anymore. It's been about a decade because I quit right after I moved here. But yeah, it was a good time. I'm not gonna lie.
Good stuff. And I'll tell you something also that's interesting, right? I have a friend who he was an attorney, all right, and was working all hours, never seeing his family, never seeing his kids, and was miserable. Okay. And he basically sat down he was on the verge of a breakdown, sat down with his wife and said, listen, something's got to change. And she wholeheartedly agreed. She'd been a stay-at-home mom for, you know, as long as either of them could remember. They decided, for the sake of his mental health, that she would go back to work, She worked part-time as a teacher, I think it was. Okay. He then transitions to being a cab driver, driving a cab. Now, a cab driver makes significantly less than an attorney, right? Years later, he said it was the best decision he's ever made. All right.
Wow.
He teaches, he tutors kids in the evenings, drives a cab. I mean, cab drivers make okay money, right? I think I would imagine now he probably drives Uber. It's been a couple of years since he made the change, but the change in quality of life is tremendous. You know, it's made such a difference. You know, maybe overall their family earnings have maybe gone down by maybe 25%, but what would they rather have? You know, go on a nicer vacation, but dad's spending his whole time. We never see dad and he's ill, you know, he's mentally ill, or we see him more, he's happier, and you know, but we don't necessarily go on such nice vacations anymore. I know what decision I
take. No. I mean, I think pretty much anyone who's listening to this would agree that there's a lot more to the world than money, and life than money. I mean, money's necessary on some level. It's not like you can just quit your job and never work again, unless you're very fortunate. But you're right. I mean, if you can figure out what it is that you love to do and then go do that, then, you know, if you make a little bit less, so what?
Right, exactly. And the savings you'll make on not needing therapy will probably pay for the difference in the job anyway.
No, I mean, that's what I'm going through right now. I mean, I gave up quite a bit of money to stop practicing law. And the idea of going back is like absolutely terrifying to me. You could tell me I would make a lot. I would make twice what I was making. It wouldn't make a difference.
Right.
Yeah. You know, it's about 10 years from now, Jillian, you might start second guessing yourself and go, I might go back to law. Like, it'd be nice for a little while. And then you'll remember how terrible it was. And that'll be like a passing thought. And then you'll never think of it again. Because that's what happened to me just now. Just now, when you were saying that, I was like, maybe I'll go back to law. And then I was like, no, I'm going to give up my law license. Why do I still have it? like I get rid of that temptation right now.
So it's funny because I've got a friend who he worked in the city, right? And I mean, he was a real high flyer. He's one of the, I mean, I know a lot of smart people. He is probably one of the smartest people that I know. He's a genius, right? Real high flyer in the city. He was a trader and was earning like gazillions of dollars, right? Really a very, 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 very high earner. But he was working he was having to travel from his home into the city. So it was like an hour and a half, 2 hour commute every day there and back, right? He had young kids. He was seeing it. Basically, his life was, he'd get up at like 5:30 in the morning, travel into the city, wouldn't get home till like 10 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday. He would basically sleep over the weekend because he was so exhausted, and then get up Monday morning and do the whole thing again. And the only time he would bond with his kids was 2-week vacations in the summertime. Yeah. And he did that for about 4 years. And his wife turned around and said, listen, if you do this for another year, you're probably going to lose your wife and kids. And so he basically quit. And I don't think he needed to retrain, but he transitioned into being a CPA. I think he qualified as a CPA and then went into the city. Moved into being a CPA. His earnings probably halved, but he's happier than he ever was.
Yeah. And I mean, Jeff and I hear this all the time from people, but I always thought, like, I had this thought, like, well, if I just make a little more money, then I could.
No, then I'll be set and I won't have to work at all, right? Like, I want to make a little bit more, and then I'll be good.
Let me tell you the most amazing thing that I learned. I learned this maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago. All right. And I'm going to bounce this off you guys and see what you think. But this is something I'm yet to find anyone that doesn't agree with this from life experience, not necessarily from the statement, right? People spend a proportion of their earnings, and it doesn't matter what their earnings are. That proportion doesn't change. So, for example, if somebody earns $100,000, okay, then let's say they're the kind of person that is quite frugal, so they'll spend 75% of their earnings and save 25%. Maybe they're not quite as frugal and they spend 85 or 90% of their earnings, Maybe they're not frugal at all and spend 100%. Maybe they're a bit over the top and spend 110%. Okay. Now, if they get a pay rise, they're not going to spend the same amount and save the rest. Their spending is going to increase by proportion of what their earnings are.
I think you're right about that too.
No, it's 100%
Yeah.
true. It's
Absolutely.
true for me. The only time I've ever saved money is not because I got a pay raise. It's because I decided to save money. Right?
Right.
Like it wasn't like, oh, I make more so I could. Like when I first started making pretty good money again after I quit law and I started getting pretty decent bonuses, I just started buying expensive art. And I wasn't thinking about it. So I ended up with a whole bunch of art. And that's okay. And books, like lots of books you see behind me. Like I just bought books. Like a signed book. That sounds fun. Well, of course I need a first edition Hemingway, right? Like why wouldn't I need that?
Right.
But now I don't do that anymore. And I make less money and I have more money.
It's funny. It's funny what you think about what you don't need too. Like, you know, when I was practicing law and I still have the car, but you know, we got a car allowance through the firm. And so my office manager was like, you have to get a car that costs X amount of dollars. Like I had to get a more expensive car to be in the policies of the firm for the leasing so we could write it off. And I ended up with like this super expensive car, and it's a nice car, but the kids and I are putting together vision boards for 2021. And on my vision board is a minivan. I cannot wait to get rid of my expensive car so I can get a minivan.
So
Minivans are the best.
Hey, so having driven your expensive car, Jillian, I can tell you right now, I much prefer it to a minivan.
I'm sure you do. You're also a guy without 3 kids.
Yeah, no, your car is not practical for you, but it would be a great car for me. So when you're ready to get rid of it, you should give me a call. Just saying.
Jillian, what car do you drive?
It's an Audi Q7.
Oh, nice.
And it's a nice car. I mean, it's a beautiful car. It's really nice, but it's like the car payment's like more than my mortgage payment now, and I don't need it. It doesn't mean that I can't afford it. It's just simply that I don't need it, and my needs have changed. You know, you certainly don't want your attorney driving around in a Toyota Tercel. But guess what? I don't have that pressure anymore.
No, it's definitely true. There is a perception thing, right? When you're practicing law, you can't pull up in a beat up old pickup truck, right? Like you just can't do it. Like your clients aren't going to hire you. It's just the way it is. And I fell into that myself and ended up driving more expensive cars when I was practicing law than I do now. Now I have a 2014 Cadillac. It's nice, but it's got 140,000 miles on it or something. So I don't care though. It's fine. It works. Like I don't have any problems with it. And it's paid off. I love it. It's paid off. No payment.
Hey, that's what you need. And Simon, I just love this so much because it really, I mean, Jeff and I have literally talked about, and I'm not saying I'm going to get a job like this, but we've talked about, let's go bartend at a tiki bar in the Caribbean. And it's kind of making me think, wait a minute, once these cruise ships start cruising around again, there's bars at every port. They need bartenders. I might go down there and get a job.
Jillian,
absolutely. I'll tell you something, right? So I'm going back now, crumbs. Going back 15 years, maybe even actually, yeah, about 15 years, right? So like Jeff, I enjoy traveling and not really had much of an opportunity to recently, but I qualified as a scuba diver back in 2005. And I remember, and this is in a town just outside Manchester called Sale. The scuba diving center used to hire the local high school's swimming pool, right? Then their swim team didn't practice on a Wednesday, so we used to go there on a Wednesday, right? And that's when we used to do it. And so I got my PADI certification. Did all the coursework and then did the thing and everything, right? Anyway, the people that owned the diving school, after I qualified, I don't know, maybe a month or two after I qualified, told us that they decided life's too short. They're jacking it in living in Manchester, and they're going off to be scuba diving instructors and dive masters in the Caribbean. And I was like, good for them. So okay, to be fair, they were transitioning something they already did just to, more temporary environments. But,
But this is exactly what I was saying with Jillian. The only thing is, Jillian, I'm going to amend. Like, if you become a bartender in the Caribbean, I'm just going to come order drinks from you. Just so you know, because I don't actually want to be a bartender. I thought I did, but I actually don't want to be a bartender. But I do want to be a scuba instructor. So if you want to learn scuba, maybe I'll teach you how to scuba dive, Jillian.
No, you can just teach scuba right off. Everybody can come in from scubaing and
then drink. Not the other way around. We don't go drink.
We don't.
We come scuba and then drink,
right, and then come back to my bar somewhere.
Absolutely. You can have the bar in the dive center, right? And then you can take people out Jeff will take people out in the boat. You'll take them scuba diving. You'll bring them back. And then Jillian, you're tending the bar, and everyone's happy. Everyone's happy.
It sounds perfect. Actually, I think we have a new strategy for our life.
This is what I do. I come on people's podcasts and change lives.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, Simon, we're gonna have to end the show now because now that I realize I want to be a dive instructor, I have no reason to do the show anymore. So it's been nice talking to you.
Which is nice because everyone that's listening to this can come and listen to the conference room. We're a broad church. We're open to everyone.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great show. I mean, and you had at least one good guest, so.
Yeah.
So, everybody, I want to thank our very special guest, Simon Lader. You can check him out at simonlader.com. Please check out his podcast, The Conference Room, or his organization, his headhunting organization, Salisi. I remember it's the Salisi because that reminded me of
Salisi Academy, right?
Academy,
yeah. But he does training and stuff there.
Yeah,
right?
Salisi Human Capital is the headhunting business. Salisi Academy is the coaching and development business.
Yeah, so you can find it all at simonlader.com. That's why I have that up there. And for those of you that are listening on the podcast, it's Simon LAD as in dog ER.com. Thank you so much, Simon, for joining us. Everybody stay tuned, and Jeff and I will wrap up the show.
Go! Jillian, are you really planning on starting a tiki bar?
Oh my God, that would be so amazing.
Yeah, I think so too. I would definitely come to your tiki bar.
Oh, that's sweet. I know it'd sell one drink. Maybe
you'd sell more than one drink. I'm pretty confident of that, especially if you can get, really drill down on the old fashioned. Because, one thing I learned about, and you should do this in Aruba too while you're at it, because there's no good old fashions in Aruba. Brian and I went everywhere in Aruba trying to find an old fashioned. Can't be done. Except for the airport. The international lounge at the airport on the way out had the best old fashioned in the whole island. I just alienated all the bartenders in Aruba from our show. I know we have tons of them that
lots of listeners.
Yes, dozens and dozens of Aruban bartenders watch the show. So sorry guys.
So how are you doing on your Kind 40 challenge?
Yeah, pretty well. I'm gonna have to get off here in a minute and go do my running because I committed to this couch to 5K.
Oh, you know what? I will go with you.
Oh God, I wish that you could actually, but you live in Southern California.
No, but I mean, I'll virtually go with you. I will go as soon as this is over, and we'll go together, and then we'll check in at our happy hour
and discuss how it went. Yeah, for sure. That sounds great. It actually sounds terrible because I hate running, but I'm going to give it a try because my accountability partner, Veronica, who's going to be a guest on a future episode, I'm really excited about having her on. She has made me do it. She's texted me several times today to remind me to go running. So,
well, we don't want to hold you up from that. Do you have a joke for us today?
I'm really delinquent on the jokes. So let me hear yours and I'll come up with something.
Okay. So the NSA walks into a bar.
Wait. The NSA, like
the national security.
Okay, so the whole NSA walks into a bar. Okay, I got it. All right.
And the bartender goes, "Hey, I've got a joke for you." And the NSA smiles and says, "I heard it."
Oh, jeez, that's yeah,
a little fun. A little fun.
That's
little great big brother watching you there.
Yeah, it's very timely. I don't think we're gonna have to edit this out because otherwise we'll get banned from Twitter or something. It could happen. We're not on Twitter, so we're safe. We can't get banned from a platform we're not on. Although actually, I saw that you retweeted something that I tweeted the other day.
Did I did it on accident.
I was like, oh my God, Jillian Sidoti on Twitter. It's amazing. If you guys want to follow her, it's at Jillian Sidoti on Twitter. She posts one retweet a decade.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think I've posted in like 2 or 3 years. I must have accidentally gone into Twitter.
Yeah, it might have been the 90s the last time you posted on Twitter. I'm not sure. Like the Twitter existed back then.
I'm not a Twitter fan, and I feel like Twitter is a universe that I'd rather stay out of, frankly. But that's not what this show is about. Everybody, thank you for joining us today. I really enjoyed Simon's talk on how to get a job.
Fantastic.
It was fantastic. Great interview. Jeff, any final words before we let our audience go?
Oh, well, this is very related to what Simon was just saying, actually. And that is, I want to remind everyone to live the best version of their last life ever.
Never gonna say